Hey guys, it's JC Theater Yu-Gi-Oh here, and today I'm coming at you with my Paleo Frog somewhat budget deck profile for you. What I mean by somewhat budget is some of the rarities of the cards in this deck are a little higher than their normal rarity level because I really enjoy the deck. So there are commons and rare version of most of the cards in this deck, which adds to the budgetness of this build. I definitely would price this in mid-tier range for deck prices. It's definitely not too expensive, but it's not dirt cheap by any means. Without further ado, here's my Paleo Frog deck profile. So first up for the deck, we play the Frog engine, so that's going to be 3 Swap Frog. We don't run too many monsters in this deck, so Swap Frog's main utility is that it can Foolish Burial 1 level 2 or lower water aqua monster from your deck to the graveyard, in which usually your target is going to be one of your 2 Ronin Totem that you play in the deck. Ronin Totem lets you banish 1 frog monster from your graveyard in order to special summon him out onto the field from your graveyard. And usually you will banish either the Swap Frog or one of the 3 Dupe Frog that we run in the deck. Dupe Frog, whenever he's sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add 1 frog monster from your graveyard or deck to your hand. So ultimately these guys work together and cycle together in order to add more level 2 aqua monsters onto your side of the field. The final 2 monsters we run in the main deck are actually 2 of the most expensive cards in the deck, and that's the 2 Gamma Seals. Kaijus are very good because they can get over most problem monsters, and Gamma Seal is usually the most expensive because it has the lowest attack, so it's the easiest to attack over. Since it's Aqua, it actually fits this deck more than any other Kaiju, as well as it naturally being the best Kaiju, so it works out in general. So this is, even though it's the most expensive, it's definitely worth it because it works very well in the deck. Now, on to the Palios. Before I start going over each Paleozoic monster we run, I want to go over some things they all have in common. Once per chain, when a trap card is activated while one of the Paleos are in the graveyard, you can special summon that trap card out onto the field as a normal monster with 1200 attack and 0 defense, and it's going to be a level 2 aqua monster, and it's not treated as a trap while on the field by this effect. And they're also unaffected by monster effects. The biggest weakness and main caveat of this is that once they leave the field, they're banished, which you can get around this if you Xyz with them, but other than that, that's why they can't just keep recurring by going to the graveyard and back. They kind of mitigate that by making them banish when they leave the field. So first up, I'm going to play 1 Paleozoic Hallucigenia. This is basically a shrink. You can select 1 monster on the field and have its attack and defense until the end phase of that turn. Next up, we play 2 Dinomischus. You can banish 1 card on the field at the cost of discarding 1 card. And it has to be face up. Next is 3 Morella. I'll put Morella down here. Morella's interesting because most of these cards react or interact with your opponent's cards, whereas Morella is simply a Foolish Burial for one of your trap cards. Since Paleozoics become monsters by being in the graveyard when a trap is activated on the field, Morella not only sets up your graveyard, but is a free activation of a trap card that doesn't need anything else to react to. Next up, we play 3 Olenoids, just a simple spell and trap removal. And then we also play 3 Canadia. I'm going to start stacking on top now here. Canadia is interesting because it's basically a Book of Moon. With the advent of Link Summoning, you could probably cut Canadia a little bit, but you can't Link Summon with a face down monster. So if you use it on the materials instead of the Link monster, that's where its beauty shines. And finally, we play 3 Pikaia. Pikaia is one of the draw cards in the deck. It lets you discard a Paleozoic card in order to draw 2 cards, which is good because that Paleozoic that you discarded, now being in the graveyard, you can special summon it out with the Paleozoic effect. Now for the 3 spells we have in the deck, if you haven't guessed already, it's going to be 3 Card of Demise. This is another card that is, I believe, very close to in price, if not slightly less than the Kaiju we run in the deck, and this is the second most expensive card in the main deck. With its reprint and dual power, Card of Demise is actually about a third of the price it was before that reprint, so it's definitely a lot more accessible to budget players. What it does is you draw cards until you have 3 cards in your hand. So since this deck mainly just has traps in it, you can just set your cards in order to have 0 cards in your hand for a potential draw 3. The only caveat is that your opponent takes no damage during that turn, and you have to discard your entire hand during the end phase. But, like I said, since this deck is mainly traps, you can simply have everything set and have no cards in your hand during the end phase as well, and then you can just reap the rewards of getting a +3 from a card, or +2 technically from this card. Another draw card we use in this deck is 3 Reckless Greed. It's an age-old thing. If you use more than 1 in a turn, you still only skip your next 2 draw phases. So the first one makes you skip 2 draw phases and you draw 2 cards. That's very equal. You know, you're drawing 2 cards, you skip the next 2 draw phases. But if you activate another one the same turn, you draw another 2 cards, but you still skip that same 2 draw phases. So if somehow you get all 3 of these activated the same turn, you get +6 cards and you only have to wait 2 turns to draw more. So it's somewhat situational, and to be honest, I've been on the fence with it. A budget option to run right now that just came out is Saryuja's Shackles. This is not in the deck. I just want to show it off as a potential choice. And since a lot of people use link monsters, let me just read its effect. You can target 1 link monster your opponent controls or that's in their graveyard, and you draw cards equal to its link rating. Then if you have 2 or more cards in your hand, place 2 cards from your hand on the bottom of your deck in any order. I see situations where this may be good in formats where every single deck that you will face plays link monsters, but if anything, you can side this in, or if you're really trying to play budget, you can even replace the Card of Demise for Saryuja's Shackles. Next up, I'm playing 3 Lost Wind. Lost Wind has actually been going down in price lately because it hasn't been seeing much play, meta play anyway. And what it does is you can target 1 face-up special summon monster on the field, and its effects are negated, and its original attack is halved. And then if a monster is special summoned from your opponent's extra deck while it's in the graveyard, you can set it from your graveyard to your field, but then you have to banish it after you use that effect. So it's basically 2 effect negations from 1 card. Plus it's a trap card, so it lets your Paleozoics special summon themselves from the graveyard when you use this. A new addition to the deck, and honestly one of the few new additions that I put in this deck, is the 3 Crackdown. Palios, especially the budget build where you're not playing like Boral Sword or anything, Palios don't have too high of an attack ceiling, so Crackdown, as well as the Kaiju, just gets problem monsters, bigger monsters, anything like that from your opponent's field, and Kaiju gets rid of them, and then this guy lets you use them. This is a trap deck, and Crackdown's just another trap that disrupts your opponent. The final 3 cards in the deck are going to be the 3 Anti-Spell Fragrance. These are the cards you would usually side out if your opponent isn't playing Pendulum or isn't playing a high spell count. Okay, so on to the extra deck. We're going to be playing 3 Mistar Boys. That little water boost and the semi-generic water materials needed for it with the good arrows definitely makes this a worthy link monster. I like having 3 of them because they recur your frog monsters to keep that loop going, and also they recur themselves if anything. And ultimately, the extra deck in this, because we are playing a more budget-friendly build, doesn't have anything too crazy other than like the pure Paleozoics, which we'll get to, and some generic rank 2s. So these arrows work best in my opinion for this deck, so that's why I'm running 3 of them. I'm also running kind of old school now, or old school quote unquote, one proxy dragon, just because sometimes, honestly, with the swarming capabilities of some of the Paleozoics, when things really pop off, you'll want just the extra link zones, to be honest. So proxy dragon just helps you get some more link zones opened up, so that way you can special summon more extra deck monsters. Next up, for the Xyz, I play 2 Paleozoic. The one with higher attack, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. He takes 3 or more level 2 monsters to special summon, and he's unaffected by monster effects just like the smaller Paleozoics. And if a trap card sent from your spell or trap zone to the graveyard, you can draw a card, and if it's a trap card, you can add it to your hand. If it's not, you have to send it to the graveyard. And as long as he has a trap card attached to him as one of his materials, aka one of the Paleozoics, you can once per turn remove an Xyz material from him in order to destroy 1 card on your opponent's side of the field, or 1 card on the field in general. The trick with him is if you happen to have the frogs and a Paleozoic on him, just remove the frogs first. Always keep that one, if you happen to have just 1 trap as an Xyz material, always keep that as the last one, so that way you can use his effect. Opabina is honestly not broken, but its effects are actually very good for this deck and brings it almost to the next level. I think the biggest weakness of him is actually that he has 0 attack and 2400 defense, and he only takes 2 level 2 monsters, and it's unaffected by monster effects, and you can activate Paleozoic trap cards from your hand, which makes this deck a lot faster. On top of that, if it has a trap card as an Xyz material, you can detach an Xyz material from him and add 1 Paleozoic trap card from your deck to your hand. Honestly, with these 2 very good effects, I feel like, I don't know, I don't see Paleozoics ever getting like a continuous trap or anything, and the effects are already on this, but this could have been 2 separate cards, and those 2 cards could have been good on their own. Both of these effects on this guy is very good. The only issue, like I said, is he's very passive on the field because he does have 0 attack, and he's only there to like stay there with his high defense and also to help out your Paleozoics. The most expensive card in the deck right now, I would like to say, because of Necroz, is the Totally Awesome. I'm running 2 because this is my personal build. If you were to play this budget, I would try to splurge for one of them. If not, it's not the end of the world. It's just Totally Awesome is pretty good in any deck that can run it, including this one, of course, since this is kind of like the pseudo boss monster, or it is the boss monster of frogs. So in turn, since frogs and Paleos work so well together, this kind of becomes the boss monster as well. The final few cards I run in the deck are honestly just some generic rank 2 monsters. Cursed Javelin is like, I think like 20 cents or something, and it's actually pretty decent. Cat Shark, I don't think is too much. Crumble Logos, when I bought it, it was a little cheap, but now it's a little bit more, so I would probably not play Crumble Logos because it doesn't come up too much. Additionally, I do play the 1 Downward Magician for when my rank 2s run out of materials. And I don't know if you've been keeping count, but as I've been doing lately with my deck profiles, I have 1 freebie in here, so you can add whatever you'd like into the deck. Ultimately, this deck is very fun, and I like it a lot. I decided to make this budget option because I personally don't have Trap Trick, and I figured, hey, if this doesn't have Trap Trick, it's basically budget, because everything else, Paleozoic isn't meta right now, so everything else that's running the deck is dropping in price, like I said, except for Totally Awesome. In the case of Totally Awesome, it will drop down eventually, so personally I would wait to pick them up at the time of recording this video anyway. I strongly believe they'll probably go down over time, especially if they get too high, they probably will be reprinted in the future, but I digress. The point is, this deck is really fun and really cool, and I would recommend picking this up now while it's on the cheaper end, especially for the common and rare versions of all the cards in this deck. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this more budget-friendly version of deck profiles, let me know. I'll try to do more of that. Most of my decks aren't too expensive anyway, because I personally don't like pumping a lot of money into a deck that I profile and then store away for a while. But thanks for watching. It's JC Theater Yu-Gi-Oh! See ya!